Hi, what you're looking at is a NuTone Deluxe outdoor patio speaker station, and this design was used between 1961 and the end of 2010. So they certainly got their money's worth out of the grill design. There are many model numbers that are associated with what this item looks like. Which model number it is depends entirely on when it was made and what system it was going to be used with. The most common model number that's associated with this is a model IS79. And IS79s came out in 1974 and they were used all the way through the end of 2010. Model numbers on earlier versions are more elaborate, numbers like 2574 or 2017 or 2084, but it doesn't really matter what model you have because they're all essentially the same grill assemblies. All of the grills are made out of aluminum. The early ones had a brushed finish to the aluminum, and then starting around 1974, they changed over to the silver anodized finish, which held up better. Over time, because these are exposed to the weather and the sun and the rain, the finish can suffer, and especially the early ones, the brushed aluminum tends to become pitted. The anodized ones can do that too. They tend to hold up better. The brushed ones are the biggest problem. So if you have one of these on your house and it looks shabby, what can you do with it? They don't make grills like this any longer, and used ones have the same problem that they all do, and finding new ones is becoming harder and harder. So let me show you how it's put together and then what you can do with it. It's attached to your house with 4 screws around the perimeter, and then the speaker cone, which is mounted on the back of the grill, is held on with 4 screws here. And once you take it off the wall and flip it over, what you'll find is an 8-inch NuTone speaker cone on the back of the grill. What speaker cone it is, again, depends on when it was made and what system it's being used for. There are basically 3 different speaker cones that were used. There are 45 ohm speaker cones, there are 3.2 ohm speaker cones, and the majority of them, starting in 1974, through the end of 2010, are 25 ohm speaker cones. The speaker cone may not look identical to this. The metal frame assembly might be somewhat different. It might have a square magnet instead of a round magnet. Again, it depends on when it was made, but basically 8-inch speaker cones are 8-inch speaker cones. As long as it's the right impedance, it'll work just fine. To take this apart, you just unscrew the 4 screws that hold the speaker to the back of the grill, and the speaker cone will come off. This is another example I have. This is one from 1973, and the speaker cone's already been removed. And what you find when you take the speaker cone off is you have this inner panel here, and the purpose of the inner panel is it blocks out the perforations around the perimeter, only leaving the circular perforations open so the sound can go through the grill, and that helps keep the water out in case it gets rained on and those kind of things. Also helps keeps the bugs out a little bit. So once you take the speaker cone off the back, this piece becomes loose. You don't have to do too much with this. Usually we're just going to clean it up a little bit and it'll be fine. What we're going to deal with today is what to do with the actual grill assembly. Now you might be able to see, I hope you can see, this one, which came from a system from 1973, it's got the typical, some paint on the edge here and there, not horrible, but it's got the usual problem, which is the aluminum has become kind of powdery on the surface, and it has a lot of pitting in it. And the pitting and the dirtiness and the powdery surface on it makes it look shabby. So I'm going to show you how you can fix this up. The first step is, once you have it apart, you need to wash it because it's dirty. It's been outside for a long time, and when you wash it, you want to make sure you get the paint off of it. Now, you don't have to do a lot to do this. The way I'm going to wash it is, I'm going to use some orange citrus cleaner, and I'm going to use a sponge with a blue Scotch-Brite pad on it because the blue Scotch-Brite pad will easily take off the paint. Most of the time on exterior paint, it's a latex base, it's just latex house paint, and the Scotch-Brite pad will easily scrub it off and it won't scratch up the aluminum surface. So I'm going to go do that now, and then I'll be back. I'm back. The grill has been washed, and I got the majority of the house paint off of it. It was really stuck on it. It really didn't want to come off all that easily, not as much as I've had before. So now it's clean, but I think you can see it's still pitted. and it doesn't, see all the pitting? It doesn't really look very good. So we're going to fix that. So what are we going to do? Well, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sand it. I've got some just regular 220 sandpaper. I made a little pad. And what we're going to do is just going to carefully sand the surface. And by doing that, we're going to do two things. We're going to sand off a lot of the pitting that happens on these. And the way I like to do these is I go around the perimeter and I just sand it off. Now if I run my finger here where I haven't sanded, it's all very rough. If I rub my finger here where I have sanded and here, it's not rough at all. It's nice and smooth. It still looks bad. It looks pitted and discolored, but we'll get to that in a second. So you very carefully just go around and lightly sand it. Now, you don't have to bear down a whole lot or anything like that because it's just on the surface. So all we're doing is sort of evening out the surface of it a little bit. We'll do this raised edge around here a little bit. And for those of you who might wonder, yes, I have done this at people's houses on their systems. So this is a good tried and true method. We do have to do the little beveled edge here. It's easier to do that if you lift it up off the workbench here a little bit like this. And you can sand the edge. This is a good opportunity to get off a little bit of paint that might have got left on when you washed it. The stubborn stuff that doesn't want to come off easily. And also, sometimes the edge right here will be kind of rough, especially if you tried to scrape the paint off with a putty knife. So it's a good opportunity. You can just lightly sand the edge, and that'll take the burrs off of it and make it nice and smooth. How much you have to sand depends a lot on how bad it is. Of course, keep track of your sandpaper. If it starts to fill up with debris from the sanding, choose a new side and just work your way around. None of this takes all that long. To do. Now the perimeter has been done, and now we have to do the field in the center. That's the part with all the little holes. Ooh, nice and smooth. All right, we'll just go around here one more time. All right, now it's sanded. And now it's nice and smooth. So what am I going to do with it now? Well, one, oh look. See, you get dirty doing that. You might want to throw disposable gloves. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take this back out and I'm going to wash it again because you need to get all the sanding residue off of it. And then once it's dry, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prime it with some spray primer. And what I like to use is this. This is Rust-Oleum. It's self-etching primer. It's a good product. It comes in two colors. This is sort of an olive green, and it also comes in a light gray. I like the olive green better because darker colors paint better over it. I guess if you were doing a light color, you could use the light gray. But this is what I like. The self-etching part means that the paint on its own etches or grabs into the metal better, but this won't have too much of a problem with the paint adhering because we've sanded it, and by sanding it you've roughed up the surface on a microscopic level so it has what they call tooth, which means the paint will grip to it. So I'm going to go wash this, I'm going to make sure it's dry, then I'm going to prime it, and then I'm going to be back. And here's our cleaned up, sanded, and primed NuTone patio speaker grill. And it already looks, oh, I don't know, 100,000 times better than it did before. If you look at it carefully up close, no pitting, nice and even. Even with just the flat primer coat, it looks better than it did before. Now that it's dry, we have to figure out what color are we going to paint it. Well, that's entirely up to you. You could paint it red, you could paint it white, you could paint it ivory, you could paint it gray, or you could paint it bronze. It's up to you. It's whatever matches your house the best. I don't recommend that you simply paint over it with latex house paint because it won't really cover up the pitting that's in it, and you didn't really want to go through all of this work to clean it up and make it look nice and get it to this point just to slap some house paint on it. Also, house paint always leaves brush marks, which will make it look shabby, and I know the trend nowadays is we've got to conceal everything, we don't want anything to stand out. Well, pick a color that's complementary to the color of the exterior of your house and go with that. If you spray paint it, especially if you do it carefully, it will be a nice, smooth, glossy finish. It won't have brush marks in it, and it won't look shabby anymore. Of course, it's up to you which way you go. I think what I'm going to do for this particular one is I'm going to paint it gray because I think that's a good choice for today. This doesn't actually belong to anybody other than me, and while I'm very tempted to paint it red just to show you and perhaps cheese some of you off because you'd be thinking, oh my god, why is he painting it red, what kind of house does he live in? I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to paint it gray. This gray I like a lot. This is a Rust-Oleum product. It's a hammered medium gray finish. You could use a non-hammered one if you want. It's completely up to you. It's your chance to be creative and do whatever you want. So now I'm going to go ahead and take it outside because we don't paint here inside the shop, and I'm going to paint it hammered gray, and then I'll be back. Here's our newly refinished aluminum grill for a NuTone IS79 8-inch outdoor speaker station, and I think it turned out really well. All the pitting is gone, and I think you can see it looks a lot better than it did before we started in its hammered medium gray finish. The color that you pick is up to you. A couple fine points about things that you can do in addition to it. If you're doing this on your own house, one of the things that you'll definitely want to do is you want to paint the heads of the screws that hold the speaker to the back of the grill the same color as the grill, and you also want to paint the heads of the screws that hold the grill to the rough end or to the wall so they all match. You don't want to really put a discolored old stainless steel screw back in your newly painted grill because that won't look very good. The other thing which you can do is on the inner shield, which sits behind the little perforations in the grill, if you don't want the aluminum color of the shield to show through the holes that it sits behind, you can, of course, you should wash this, and then you can also prime the inside of it and paint it the same color as the grill so it all matches. You definitely should take it apart. Don't try to paint this with it in place, and definitely don't try to refinish all of this without taking the speaker cone off the back of the grill itself. I've seen people do that, and what happens is when they spray paint it, paint will get through the perforations in the grill and you'll get primer and paint on the speaker cone, and that's not very good. Of course, most of the time when you're doing this, it's because the speaker cone has failed. So now that you've made it all look good, and you'll probably paint this too. And when you put this back in, by the way, you'll notice how the corners are bent down. The center part is flat and these are bent down a little bit. When you put this back on, the way they're bent down, this is the front. So it sits against the grill. When you tighten the screws down, it squeezes it and helps seal it around the edge. So that's just, you don't put it the other way like this. It's also easy to tell because this one has a date stamp on it. So you know that was the back. Once you've done all of this and you've repainted it and you refinish it all, if you need a speaker cone, you can get those from us or from other places. Make sure you get the right one, either 45 ohms or 3.2 ohms or 25 ohms. Any other one would be wrong. Make sure you get the right one that matches the original speaker cone off the back of the grill before you took it apart. I hope you found this interesting and perhaps it'll be helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. because that always helps. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell or on the wheel, put in your email address, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.